are vassals to us. They're almost like Persian satrapies, like from the pre-Islamic day. Like we give them some autonomy, like they're independent in some sense. But when the call comes, they answer. We're gonna leverage them and milk them for all they're worth in service of our interests.
And what are we even getting out of that? Like, I want to see a Europe revitalized.
Right, I would too. It'd be cool. But Europe, it ties into what we were talking about earlier with these deeper spiritual or cultural issues. Like, what is there left to be revitalized in Europe? It's an emptied out, hollow, lost civilization. We've seen Europe represents a unique condition in modern times. Before empires fell and people just died, and it take centuries to rebuild, and the reconstitution of that civilization is like a phoenix rising from the ashes. It representing something new and integral. Maybe it borrowed the imagery or the aesthetic or some of the ideals and principles of the civilization that came before, but regardless, it represented something new and thorough. We literally just paid for Europe not to collapse after World War II. We just bought them out. We subsidized their collapse. And because of that, we've propped them up now as this like hollow, empty civilization deprived of any essential quality. And we've seen them hobbling along. And now like they have some material power, some economic power, but they're just vassals for us. What's left? What is integral in their culture, in their civilization? It's really unique. We subsidize the collapse. Now it's like a zombie that we've propped up and like, okay, keep marching along. Like, you're Europe, right? Like, this is cool. No.
And actually, conservatives predicted this in the 50s.
Yeah.
Like Senator Robert Taft was against like aspects of the Marshall Plan and against NATO because of these reasons.
Yeah.
And I understand at least the argument for countering the Soviet Union, but maybe these conservatives, these old school paleocons were right. They kind of saw this coming a mile away. I mean, 50 years away.
Right, which is impressive given our time scale now. We have difficulty assessing events even next week, let alone 50 years in the future. So, credit to them, but you could see it from that perspective. Why would we be buying out Europe in this way, propping them up? Like, what else? I mean, maybe what else could you do? It's the only real natural ally that we would have or identify, and we could maybe restore them to a sort of acceptable material strength. But I think what's proven through it is material strength isn't enough.
It's caused this weird dependency.
Yeah.
Just like welfare in the United States.
100%. Dude, these ungrateful losers, they benefit from military support from the United States, our hegemony, and they have this like haughty, prideful attitude like, you Americans, like we're so much better, more cultured than you. It's like, dude, your culture's fake. It doesn't exist anymore. You're propping up something illusory. Your material strength is fake. It's entirely subsidized by Americans. You better give me respect if I walk through the streets of Paris tomorrow.
Your culture is literally my museum and my restaurant, brother.
I am my restaurant.
And I'm enjoying
you gotta make it American in some way. Like, there better be fast food. There better be McDonald's.
You guys better be speaking English at this restaurant.
No, I'm being hyperbolic in a certain sense, but it's true. They act like they did it themselves. And it's like, no, maybe this is part of the revitalization or what you said, James. Like, you'd want to see them revitalized, but they think they're already there. They think they already represent some sort of apex, but they're riding out this sort of wave of past glory, and it's just wrapped up. But again, it's so in their culture they couldn't even talk about it because it's a problematic past. It can't be talked about in any sort of glorious sense. But we're still somehow better. But it's the acceptable better because it's against Americans or something to that effect. But can Europe be revitalized? Is there anything to revitalize? Would be my retort. What's there? What can we identify that's salient and meaningful in European culture except the hopes for a time gone by? What's left? What is worth preserving even? Capital? Money? The architecture? What does the architecture mean in a civilization that doesn't appreciate it, doesn't care for it, that's always moving beyond?
Yeah.
There's already something lost there. There's nothing to really revitalize. I think a lot of people on the right sort of stake their hopes on just a pure return to tradition, as they say, a sort of a rebuilding of the past, a reconstitution. That may be just impossible. And I think a lot of that comes from a sort of misunderstanding of what actually lies in the West's decline and how far back it may really go. A lot of these types sort of identify what I would consider to be the beginning of Western decadence in its fall as the sort of apex of the civilization itself that they want to revitalize. It's like, no, it was already moving away from true principle. There's already something lost there. Now we're so far gone, there's no hope in revitalizing it. But like, we can't just be like, oh, it's great, Italy's awesome, when it's not. You have to rebuild. And rebuild may be independent of our ridiculous influence. There's no energy.
Yeah.
And that's such an amorphous concept, of course. Like, how do you even talk about energy or what that means on a civilizational level? But it is something like palpable, I think, when you're there. Like, you see it. Like, there's no driving force. Whatever that impetus that pushes civilization onwards, it seems to be, or at least feels to be, lacking here. And that's something really significant. If you go to other places of the world, maybe even China, I don't think you experience that same palpable lack of civilizational drive. I think it's there probably in abundance. And it's and that's something to consider, something to factor in. And maybe it's a challenge to the Europeans to build something of themselves again, and not just hobble along as a empty vassal state of U.S. power, really. It's just, there's something more. Maybe there's something of value in the civilization still. So find that and build it up.